Hey guys, today what we're going to be doing, this is part one of using quadratic formula. So this is a formula that you should see on your reference chart, okay? It is on your reference chart. This is a wonderful method of how to find your solutions, zeros, or x-intercepts. We've talked about that before. So I want to go ahead and go over these bullet points here because these are like our key points here. So when a quadratic function is not easily factorable, so like when it's not easy to factor, because sometimes it's not easy to factor like these types of equations, and completing the square is inconvenient, meaning you can't like really not use it. It's not an easy method. You can solve it by using the quadratic formula. Okay, the quadratic formula is this. This is the quadratic formula. So I want you to go ahead and write that on your notes. This is the quadratic formula. Oops. Okay. Now, I want you to go ahead and write, it helps. So start here. It helps find x-intercepts, solutions, zeros, and roots. And this should all sound familiar to you because we have talked about this before, right, guys? Now, the quadratic formula states that for an equation in standard form, so they're talking about this standard form, guys, like when it's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So when it's in this form, you can use this quadratic formula in order to find the x-intercepts, the solutions, the zeros, and the roots, which are all in the same thing. And to use this formula, you have to substitute. So go ahead and write substitute the values for A, B, and C, then simplify. So let's actually go step by step of actually what that looks like, okay? So in this first example, so I'm going to go ahead and use a different color so you can see it. So first thing we have to do, step one, is name the coefficients, A, B, and C. So my A coefficient here, remember there's an invisible 1 right there. So that's a 1. B coefficient is 9. C coefficient is 14. Okay, so we know our coefficients. Now we have to follow this formula. So I'm going to be following this formula and writing my work here, guys, okay? So it's going to be x equals, go ahead, I want you to kind of like pre-eliminate like what you're going to do. So it's going to be minus sign, parentheses, your B coefficient. Let's not write any coefficients or numbers yet, okay? Plus or minus square root, parentheses, B, right? Then square minus 4 parentheses whatever A coefficient is, and then another parentheses C coefficient, okay? All over 2, that's going to be A coefficient, parentheses, okay? So now let's go ahead and fill in those parentheses and knowing what those coefficients are going to be, okay, right? Okay, guys? So my B coefficient here would be 9. Okay, do you see where I'm getting the 9 from? Right here. So I did that coefficient. Plus or minus. I'm going to explain that in just a little bit. And then the square root. Then your B coefficient here. Your B coefficient, guys, is what? It's 9 again. Okay, square minus 4. That's part of the formula. What's my A coefficient? 1. C coefficient is 14. All over, and it's 2. A coefficient is 1. Now, guys, I know it's tempting to just put all of this in a calculator, but I do not want you to do it that way. You want to do one part at a time so you know what you're doing, okay? So it's going to be x equals negative times 9 would be a negative 9 plus or minus, okay? Now, let's actually solve what's in here in what we're going to be calling the discriminant. So go ahead and get your graphing calculator. I am too. Okay. You should see it. All right. So I'm going to calculate what's here. So it's going to be parentheses 9 parentheses square minus 4 parentheses 1 parentheses. Okay. Then parentheses 14 parentheses. Guys, you notice how I don't put the square root yet? You do not want to do that first because you want to check. Later on, I'm going to explain to you later on, like it's best to check it this way to see if you even get a solution. Later, I'll explain that. So here it equals 25. So I'm going to go ahead and write square root 25. Got it? So we did that part. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, now this is the part where you should pay attention to. So I'm going to start using a different color. All right? In just a bit. Hold on one second. Okay, so it's going to be negative 9 plus or minus. Now you can do the square root of 25. What is the square root of 25? Okay, so if I did second square 25, just to show you, I get 5. Okay, all over 2. Then this is the part where it's going to get a little different. Okay, this is where you're going to have 2 different things going on. Remember how I told you this plus and minus part? I'm going to explain to you later. This is the part. So you're going to actually do one for a plus, and then you're actually going to do one for a minus. So let me show you what that looks like. So basically, it's going to be negative 9 plus 5 all over 2. See how I just had the plus sign? Then the second one is going to be negative 9 minus 5 over 2. Okay? Now we have to solve them both. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to do negative 9 plus 5 first. So negative 9 plus 5 equals negative 4, right? Divided by 2 would give me negative 2. Okay? So it looks, if you really do want to do in the calculator, this is how you would do it. Parentheses, negative 9 plus 5 parentheses. You see how I put that in parentheses, the top part, which is our numerator. Okay? Then you want to put divide all over 2. Enter. See, I get negative 2. Let's do the second one. So parentheses, negative 9 minus 5 parentheses. See how I put in parentheses? I put the numerator in parentheses. Then divide by 2. And then I get negative 7. Okay? So now I get negative 7. Okay? So my solution, so the solutions here, the solutions for x squared plus 9x plus 14 are x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 7. So these are like, guys, these are my solutions. These are my roots. These are my zeros. These are my x-intercepts, okay? That's what we mean by solutions, and you should know that by now. Okay, now remember that you can always check your solutions by a graph. The graph should confirm the x-intercepts of y equals x squared plus 9x plus 14 are negative 2 and negative 7. And just to confirm, let's actually graph it so you can see it. So if I go to y equals, okay, I'm going to clear this out, and I'm going to put in this equation. X squared plus 9x plus 14. I'm going to graph. Okay. Remember, these would be my x-intercepts. And remember, I can actually do that. So remember, I want to go with this cursor. So my x-intercept, you see that? It's a negative 1.9, but that's technically a negative 2, guys. Then if I go here, whoops, went too far. Here, it's about negative 7, which is correct, guys. Do you see that? And then also, too, you can even check in the table. Second graph, your table. you want to look when y is equal to 0. Okay, so 0 or -2, 0. That's the x-intercept. Okay, and then we also said it was -7, right? Okay, let's check for -7. -7, 0. You see when y is 0, that's your x-intercept. Okay, now I want you to try doing one on your own. All right, guys. Now, for the last part of this lesson, remember how I told you I was going to explain about what's in that how I was going to explain what's in that radical here? Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So, in the quadratic formula, the expression in the radical, go ahead and write radical, and I mean this, that's the radical, is called inside a discriminant, okay? So basically this is the radical, this is a discriminant. So that's why I calculate this part first, because this part, guys, is the discriminant of a quadratic equation, which is b squared minus 4ac, can be used to find the number of solutions. So that's why you want to calculate what's in the discriminant first, because whenever the value of b squared minus 4ac is positive, then the equation has 2 solutions. And if the b squared minus 4ac is 0, then the equation is going to have 1 solution. And if the value b squared minus 4ac is negative, it's going to have no real solutions. And that should sound very familiar to you guys. So basically here, since this was positive, right? And it says positive, the equation is going to have 2 solutions. Okay? I want you to try some examples of what I mean by that. Okay?